Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone.
June 4th, 1989, my very dear friend Don died in a car crash. 25 years old, and never before Don's death had I suffered the death of a man I was so in love with. Don was born in Albuquerque, April 25th, 1964, about a month before I graduated from high school in Illinois. Then I was a very sincere Christian 18-year-old farm boy. I never visited New Mexico. I did not know that some men are in love and make love with men. I did not know that I was gay. If anyone had told me that a baby boy just born in Albuquerque would become so precious to me, how could I have understood it? I met Don when he was 16. A few months later, I told him I am gay. He was attracted to me. He wanted to have sex with me. I was very attracted to him. I wanted to have sex with him. But I turned him down because he was under 18. I did not want to risk getting arrested for having sex with Don at 16. He was deeply hurt. I was torn inside. And here I shall read from his letter expressing his anger at me for refusing sex with him because he was under 18. Don wrote, "First of all, I'm a young man, 16. I don't see where age has anything to do with sex. If a man wants sex with me and I want sex with him, that's fine. But if a man wants sex with me but is afraid of my age, it doesn't make any sense. A man is someone of 18 years old, so I'm not a man, but what or who I enjoy to have sex is none of anyone's business. When I went down that last time," he's speaking of to the motel where I was staying because I was just in Albuquerque for a while, "I was hoping for sex, but now I know it can't happen. To answer your question, yes, I'm sexually attracted to you. Are you sexually attracted to me? Second of all, I never plan to tell my parents anything at all that concerns my sex life, just the same as they wouldn't tell me about theirs. I could live a long time without sex if I wanted to. But as long as I can have it or give it, why should I stop? I've had bad results from sex, but I can't make a wall out of it. I think that gay sex, as well as straight sex, is wonderful. But I don't have to stop or alter my sex life because I'm 16 years old. I want you to know that there's not a damn thing wrong with my thinking. Don, I'm sorry if this is a hostile letter, but you really made me mad. I should have been a little more understanding, and I'm sorry. Please keep in contact with me. Feel free to call. With love, Don. And this letter was the only angry letter he ever wrote to me. Don did not realize the arrest and prosecution I might have suffered and other risks for me and for him if I had had sex with him when he was 16. June 22nd, 1983, when Don was 19, he and I made love in Denver where he was living. And the next morning, a woman friend of his asked me where I had slept. And Don spoke up. He slept with me. Don had balls. How attractive Don was. Lean physique, sexy voice, intense, passionate, curious, yearning for love. Don's mother was Chicana, his father Italian. Don and I never lived together as partners. He drank booze. He smoked cigarettes. I hate booze. I hate cigarettes. But I deeply loved Don. I was in love with him. And after he died on June 4th, 1989, at 25 in that car crash, his mother asked me to be in charge of his memorial service and to be an honorary pallbearer. I poured my heart into songs I sang. Amazing Grace, Precious Lord, Take My Hand, Cordero de Dios, Yo Te Amo Mucho. At that time, I was still somewhat religious. People wept. His mother later told me no preacher, no priest could have done a better job. The next night after Don's memorial service, his white stepfather told me, I never understood until last night. Apparently, he meant he had never understood a man being in love with a man until he experienced the deep feelings I expressed for Don in that service. Don's lover, Kyle, whom I met for the first time at the funeral home, told me he had seen a picture of me that Don had. And Kyle had asked Don who that was. And Don said, he and I are very close. And Kyle asked Don, well, what does that mean? Don told Kyle, you know what that means. Don's brother and sister gave me more than 30 letters and cards I'd written Don for years. And he had saved. He had saved. And as I later read them, I was so glad to see that I had clearly expressed my passionate, romantic affection for him. How terribly sad if we love someone and that person dies and we never told them how much we love them. Deep grief is a precious agony, showing us how much we can love someone. And before they closed the lid of Don's casket, I chose to be the last to say goodbye. I kissed his hands, I kissed his forehead, I kissed his lips, and I wept. Earlier, I placed a small card near his hands for others to read. To my beloved Don, with eternal embraces and passionate affection. from Don Schrader. And when my mother died in 1982, 7 years before Don, I mourned tremendously alone on our farm in Illinois with sobs and yells. She was my all-time closest friend. Don's death, 7 years later, matured me to weep freely in public. Worse than suffering such loss would never be coming close enough to anyone in life to feel such pain in parting and to shed tears in public with no shame. I've gone many times over the years to his grave at Fairview Cemetery on Yale Boulevard, Southeast. I kissed the grass above his lips, above his hands, above his cock, above his feet. And when my mother died in 1982, when my dad died in 1994, I chose to be the last to kiss their lips before their caskets were closed. As the old song says, save the last dance for me. Never, never be ashamed to show love for someone when they are alive or when they are dead. And I dedicate this program to my beloved Don. Why would any mother, any father want their teenage son to beat up, bruise, and bloody another male teenager as a boxer? Why would any mother, any father want their teenage daughter to beat up, bruise, bloody another female teenager as a boxer? Why would any mother, any father cheer and celebrate their teenage son or daughter inflicting pain and injuries on another teenager? Why? Why would any mother, any father be proud of their son or daughter for being a boxer? Why would any mother, any father be ashamed of their teenage son giving and receiving body pleasure in sex with a male teenage friend? Why would any mother, any father be ashamed of their teenage daughter giving and receiving body pleasure in sex with a teenage female friend? Why would any mother, any father damn their teenage son for making his teenage buddy's body feel good? Why would any mother, any father damn their teenage daughter's making her teenage female friend's body feel good? I damn all boxing, all violent sports, football, mixed martial arts for males or females of all ages. I celebrate affectionate sexual pleasure wanted and enjoyed by male teenagers with each other and by female teenagers with each other. As we get older, sometimes it gets harder to hold our piss and our shit. A simple exercise we can do anytime, anywhere we're awake can greatly help. Squeeze and release our asshole muscle 30, 50, or more times, several times a day. Or squeeze our asshole muscle tight for a minute or two before releasing. Filthy rich big shots in corporations and government are not the only cause of war, the climate crisis, and the suffering of hundreds of millions who are sick and hungry with no home. Sadly, millions of low and middle income parents would be glad if their son or daughter became a filthy rich big shot in a corporation or in government. Sadly, millions of low and middle income people would be glad to become a millionaire or a billionaire. Not I. The root of the problem is not just capitalism, as evil as it can be. The root is greed, always wanting more, never enough, always wanting much more than we need. I enjoy living simply and healthy below, well below, the U.S. poverty level for me as a single person. I treasure movies that cause me to cry and to live better. Movies with deep feelings. If a movie has no tears in the movie and no tears in the audience watching the movie, I'm not interested in seeing it unless it's a documentary. Sadly, most movies are like serving rotten garbage on gold platters. Excellent acting, well-designed sets, beautiful scenery, but the message, their content, is violent or shallow, or both violent and shallow. Most movies are shit, worse than shit, because at least shit can be used as fertilizer. Sadly, most movies are nothing uplifting. Most movies are nothing inspiring. Most movies are nothing life-changing. I do not want to bullshit myself on anything. I want to face the truth even when I don't like it. All of the healthy raw plant foods and healing herbs I eat every day will never make my own teeth grow back. Sadly, my natural teeth are gone forever, largely because of my severe addiction to sugar shit, ice cream, cake, cookies, candy, the first 30-some years of my life. All of the healthy raw plant foods and healing herbs I eat every day will never make my hernia go away. Eating my healthy raw plant foods and healing herbs, getting enough exercise, sleep, sunshine, eating no junk food, no meat, no dairy, can keep me from getting fat. I hope to stay lean until the day I die. I love to live lean and healthy. I wish every bartender, I wish every booze maker, I wish every booze seller, I wish every trucker delivering booze, every community leader celebrating new local breweries, every musician singing songs in Spanish or English about tequila and other booze. I wish all of them, had seen the man who came up to me just the other day. He begged me to give him alcohol. He was desperately sick because of booze. I told him I drink no booze. I would not give booze to anyone. Booze is slow poison. I wish every bartender, every booze maker, every booze seller, every trucker delivering booze, every community leader celebrating new local breweries, every musician singing songs in Spanish or English about tequila and other booze would see what my very close friend has suffered with his 40-year-old daughter. She is severely alcoholic, in and out of jail the past 9 years, seriously mentally ill. She has gone through hell, and my very close friend, her father, has gone through hell. Sadly, many social drinkers end up sick, lonely alcoholics dying young. I drink no booze. And as I told my very close friend, the father of this 40-year-old woman, I said, I don't know how I would cope in your situation. Many years ago, in our Illinois farm home, I was writing at my desk late one evening. And my mother told me, why don't you go to bed and get up and do this in the morning when your mind is fresh? And she was right. And so if you're working on a project and it's starting to get late, take a few notes and then go to bed. Often our minds work during the night when we're asleep to see things in a different way the next day. We can be actually working on a problem, on a situation at night while we're sleeping. Going to bed every night 1 hour earlier than usual can help some people feel less depressed. 1 hour earlier every night. Check it out. Hour for hour, the hours we sleep before midnight benefit us more than the hours we sleep after midnight. I like to go to bed almost every night between 9 and 10 p.m. and to get up at 6 or so a.m. Nothing can substitute for our getting enough sleep every night if we want to be healthy, if we want to feel good. Sadly, the United States and other nations have tortured prisoners by keeping them awake, not letting them sleep. That is torture. People can go almost crazy when deprived of the sleep that we all need. If you have not produced any kids, and if you care, if you give a damn about saving the environment of our only home, Mother Earth, and if you want to slow the climate crisis, I urge you not to produce any kids. But if you already have produced kids, I urge you to be an example every day to your kids of enjoying living simply and healthy every day on far less than most people in the United States live on, or most people in the United States want to live on. Show them by your own life you can enjoy very much living simply in this world family of 8 billion sisters and brothers. Enjoy living on just enough. And for many reasons, I am glad I produced no kids. But if you want to help kids, adopt or foster parent kids already here who greatly need loving adults. Many kids have imaginary friends they talk to, especially if those kids have few real playmates, and especially if every day they suffer constant hell at home. Many of those kids have imaginary friends they talk to as they play. Many adults have their imaginary friend, God, in the heavens. And many adults pour out their hearts, their whole lives, to this imaginary friend, God. They pray for help in many serious situations. And if their imaginary friend, God, in the heavens does not help them, these sincere believers, and I was one, these sincere believers will defend their imaginary friend God with all kinds of excuses. It was not God's will. God is testing my faith. In the next life after death, I will understand why God chose not to do what I prayed for. Many excuses why God, their imaginary friend, did not help them in desperate situations. Now, in many places, for hundreds of years, I could have been tortured, I could have been locked up, I could have been killed by a mob of believers of whatever religion, for saying what I just said the past couple minutes publicly, as I did here now. I humbly confess I was a sincere young Christian preacher 56 years ago, first in Virginia, then Illinois. And for many years, I publicly prayed to, preached about, sang about God, this imaginary friend. With much help from many people, I slowly woke up to my religious fantasy, my delusion. At special family meals, my grandparents called on me when I was a young man to pray the blessing before we ate. I am no longer a believer in this imaginary friend in the heavens. I regret, I apologize for advertising this make-believe imaginary friend, God. I wish we had a fair, loving, all-powerful, real parent God who helped all people who desperately pray for help. But I refuse to swallow, I refuse to advertise feel-good, make-believe religious bullshit. I want truth. and wanting a fair, loving, all-powerful, real parent God who helps all who desperately pray for help, wanting that does not make it so. All romantic relationships, all friendships, all marriages have ups and downs, serious problems, difficult hurdles. But if you and your marriage partner are both miserable most of the time for months or years in your marriage, and if you've tried marriage counseling, set yourselves free. No matter what your religion says about divorce, no matter what your families and friends say about divorce, no matter the promises and the vows you both made when you did not know better, no matter if you have kids, do your kids like the emotional war of screams and threats, or the icy silence between you both they suffer? Drinking booze will not heal your broken dreams. Booze makes a bad marriage worse. Buying lots of expensive crap you do not need will not heal your broken hearts. Hogging out on sweet shit, ice cream, candy, cake, sodas, cookies will never satisfy your deep desire for affectionate, passionate sex and romance. We all make many mistakes in our lives. If your marriage constantly feels like slavery, if your marriage constantly feels like prison, set yourselves free. Do not blame the hell all on your partner. Do not stay together because you're afraid of being alone. Do not stay together because you're afraid you'll never find somebody else for romance. Do not stay together so you can live in your bigger place with more money. Far better to live peaceably alone in a much smaller place with just enough money for your basic needs than to live in a mansion making each other miserable. My mother and dad were miserable cellmates until death in the prison of their marriage. Very hard on both of them. My dad became a workaholic. My mother became severely addicted to sugar and to buying much small stuff she did not need. If I had been my mother, I do not know how I could have coped being married to my dad. If I had been my dad, I do not know how I could have coped being married to my mother. I wish they had parted peacefully or had never married. Some couples become better friends after they no longer live together under the same roof, after they separate, after they divorce. Sadly, Colin Powell was very high in the U.S. military, the U.S. government. Colin Powell had the blood on his hands of millions of people in the Vietnam War, the Gulf War against Iraq, and the later U.S. war against Iraq under George W. Bush. Colin Powell grew up in New York City. And many of Colin Powell's neighborhood's kids became violent street gang members. Many of those gang members died on the streets, killed on the streets. Many gang members went to prison. But the awful, sad, bloody truth is that Colin Powell was heavily involved in the blinding, the crippling, the murder of far more human beings than all those violent street gang members of his neighborhood combined. But because Colin Powell did it as a big shot in the U.S. military and the U.S. government, millions then and now consider Colin Powell a success, a hero, a model of African American achievement. Does anyone in the U.S. mainstream newspapers, radio, or TV say what I just said about Colin Powell? Anybody? Publicly? And sadly, most of those mainstream newspapers, radio, and TV commentators are addicted to the U.S. war machine, and if they have a conscience, they fear speaking out for how it will hurt their customer base, hurt the income of their media. No one is born evil. Colin Powell was not born a war criminal. But sadly, he became a war criminal step by step, as many people cheered him on. Sadly, Colin Powell celebrated black people being accepted and promoted in the most violent gang in the United States, the U.S. military. And many white U.S. presidents and generals are also war criminals. Many white U.S. presidents and generals are also war criminals. And for thousands of years, all empires celebrate when former victims of the empire become accomplices in the empire's atrocities. And sadly, that has happened with many Native American soldiers, many African American soldiers. Will young people 50 years from now curse us today for being too lazy, too blind, too selfish, too spoiled, too stubborn, if we refuse to make huge changes right now in how we each live to slow the climate crisis? The American dream of a big house full of expensive stuff no one needs. The American dream of fancy cars. The American dream of driving and flying thousands of miles to vacation. The American dream of eating as much meat and dairy as you want is a nightmare disaster for all life on Earth. Now, the planet Earth will not disappear, but life as we know it, human, plant, animal, will be severely, severely ravaged and destroyed. I've ridden in no car for 21 years. I've owned no car for 43 years. I wouldn't keep a car if you gave it to me free and paid me to drive it. I ride city buses, but I mostly walk. And I have flown in no plane for many, many years, maybe 30 years or more. And cars and planes are the worst ways of mass travel for our Mother Earth. Buses and trains are less damaging. My home is one sunny room, 9.5 by 12 feet, 114 square feet, with 6 windows. Now, don't get me wrong. If my 9.5 by 12-foot room had no windows or one window, I would hate it. But it has 6 windows, so it's bathed in natural light. 3 on the south, 3 on the east. I love my room. I enjoy living simply below the U.S. poverty level. I eat no meat, no dairy. Raising animals for humans to eat is one of the huge contributors to the climate crisis. I have no right to much more than I need, while many millions worldwide suffer hunger and sickness with no home on far less than they need. I'm deeply indebted to many people who have taught me, many people who have loved me, many people who have inspired me. I collect wisdom every day, constantly. Wisdom on how to live and how not to live. I collect wisdom to live it and to share it with anyone interested through this program, through conversations, through the letters I write to friends in prison or elsewhere. I strongly compliment many Jews in the United States, many Jews in Israel, for publicly damning the Israeli government's brutal oppression and mass murder of Palestinians. U.S. tax dollars buy the tanks, the guns, the helicopters, the bulldozers, the missiles the Israeli military uses to terrorize, cripple, paralyze, make homeless, and murder Palestinians. The Israeli military has killed hundreds of Palestinian boys and girls and has wounded thousands more. The U.S. empire has also supported for decades corrupt, bloody dictatorships in Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Why? In order to control the region, because of U.S. addiction to oil. I support peace and human rights for all people in Israel and in Palestine. Revenge and more violence are not the answer for Israelis. Revenge and more violence are not the answer for Palestinians. I have paid no U.S. federal income tax for 44 years. I refuse to pay for Israel to rob, to torture, to massacre Palestinians. I've ridden in no car, as I said a bit ago, for 21 years, greatly reducing my use of oil. I support the nonviolent campaign to boycott Israel and to remove investments in Israel. I know of no Israeli Jew. I know of no Israeli Jew who would prefer living as a Palestinian in the West Bank or Gaza. My longtime close friend, Chester, in Colorado, who's now 86, said in one of his many letters, he said, with the 2011 prostate cancer diagnosis, I was reading many books and web articles on the big C, cancer, and there learned that a protein in milk, and I would especially emphasize cow's milk, a protein in milk, casein, promotes the growth of prostate cancer cells. And he says, I haven't touched the stuff in any form since. Casein is also, I sure never learned this in school. Maybe it wasn't happening then yet, I don't know. Casein is also fed to experimental animals in cancer research studies, since it can accelerate the cancer growth, and the researchers want the process to move along quickly for their research and study purposes. So, if you have had cancer and seem to be in remission, or if several people in your family have suffered from cancer, or if you just want to improve your odds of not getting cancer, period, get off all dairy products of cow's milk, cheese, ice cream, milk. Get off it all. Because the casein in cow's milk accelerates the growth of cancer. I learned to squat to shit in the 1970s instead of sitting on a toilet seat. Our ancestors all over the world for thousands of years would squat to shit. Many animals squat to shit. Squatting gives our colon a straight shot to release our shit. Sitting, as most people do, I guess, in this country, sitting to shit can be one cause of constipation, colon cancer, and hemorrhoids. If I'm using a toilet stool in a public restroom, I lift the seat on the stool and perch my feet on the rim of the toilet bowl. And if you cannot physically do that, sit on the seat, bend your legs, and pull your feet close to your ass on the seat. And if you physically cannot do that, and in this case, if you happen to be at home in your bathroom, put something the same height in front of the toilet stool, bend your legs, and put your feet on that. Sitting to shit often leaves some shit in the colon, causing low energy, fatigue, and bloating. And instead of toilet paper, I have used small, wet cloths for years. 5 good reasons. Wet cloths clean better than toilet paper. Wet cloths feel better than toilet paper. Wet cloths save money, save trees, save paper. I rinse them out and use them many times. How would you enjoy having a luxury car if your lungs are shot from many years of smoking 2 packs a day? How much would you enjoy having a souped-up lowrider if you're suffering diabetes, dialysis, amputated legs because of many years of eating sugar shit and refusing to exercise? How much would you enjoy $1 million mansion if you're dying of liver disease because of many years drinking booze? How much would you enjoy having the most money in your family, the most money in your community, if you would always wonder how many of your relatives, how many of your neighbors would still be as friendly to you if you did not have all that money, if you were one of the lowest income persons in your family, in your community? Do they love you or hope you will give them some of your money? Many millionaires, many billionaires suffering severe sickness would give all of their money if they could have a healthy body. And a person with a healthy body, some close friends, and enough money for nutritious food, small, decent shelter, is far richer, infinitely richer, than any millionaire or billionaire in a very sick body. Booze kills far more people percentage-wise in New Mexico than any other state, twice the national average, die in New Mexico from drunk driving and from illness caused and made worse by booze. I drink no booze, and I urge all community leaders, all athletes, all musicians to pledge publicly to drink no booze the rest of their lives. An estimated $1 million or more in lifetime costs per person connected to smoking cigarettes. An estimated $1 million or more in lifetime costs per person connected to smoking cigarettes. The cost of the cigarettes for a lifetime and the huge medical bills for treating the lung cancer, the heart disease, and many other awful conditions caused by smoking cigarettes. Of all 50 states, New Mexico has the highest rate of deaths connected to damn booze. I warmly thank Mark and Eddie for their excellent help this program and dozens of times running the cameras and the controls for this program. And thanks to all of you watching, to your health, my fresh piss. And if you see me walking on the street or at some event, I invite you to talk with me if you want to. And if you or someone you know wants me to speak about any of the things that I talk about on this program to a class or a gathering in someone's home, I would love to do so. I love personal questions. just stop me and talk. Good night.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said